One of Hollywood's most loved stars, her face was known all over the world, and her name was linked to beauty, skill, and tragedy. Natasha Wood's life was like a movie story. A meteoric rise to fame, a glamorous marriage, and a death that people still don't understand more than 40 years later. Even though there were red carpets and cameras, something much darker may have been going on. At the age of 79, Natalie's sister has finally come clean. One that she's had for years. What Natalie said could cast a whole new shadow over the memory of Robert Wagner, the man she couldn't seem to let go of. There's more to this story than meets the eye. A person who was there has told us this. Someone who says she saw the signs and tried to stop what she thought was going to happen. Why did Lana Wood beg Natalie twice to leave the man she married? What did Natalie hide? That being said, could the truth about how she died be scarier than we thought? The answers are in the memories of a sister who has lost a brother and in the silence that has been going on for too long. How Natalie Wood became a Hollywood star through her most important parts. At the time, Natalie Wood was one of the most beautiful actors alive. She was a rare talent who grew up in front of the camera and has stayed popular and relevant for decades in a business that tends to forget about its young stars. Natalia Nikolai Zakharina was born on July 20, 1938, in San Francisco to parents who came to the U.S. from Russia. She started acting almost before she could walk. Natalie's mother moved the family to Los Angeles so her daughter could pursue a job in show business. She did this because she saw Natalie's natural charm and good looks. Natalie's life and the history of American movies would both be changed by that choice. Natalie's first movie part was in Happy Land, 1943, when she was only 4 years old. But it didn't take long for people to fall in love with her. When she was only 8, she made her big stage debut as Susan Walker in the 1947 Christmas classic Miracle on 34th Street. A lot of people knew her from that movie, and it was the start of one of the most successful careers of a child actress in Hollywood history. Natalie made a smooth transition into adult parts, unlike many child stars whose careers fade as they get older. A feat that is still very rare today. When Natalie Wood got older, she worked hard to break away from the idea of a child star. She played opposite James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause in 1955. The movie became famous on its own, and it also marked a big change in her career. As Judy, a troubled girl, Wood showed a level of emotional depth and complexity that viewers had not seen before. The part got her a nomination for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress and cemented her reputation as a serious actor who could give complex performances. Natalie was a favorite of both filmmakers and viewers because of how beautiful, classy, and emotional she was. She stood out because she was both sensitive and strong, calm and intense. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, she was in a number of hit movies that showed how versatile she was. In Splendor in the Grass, 1961, she played a young woman who was torn between desire and repression. In West Side Story, 1961, she played Maria, the innocent and loving lead in a modern-day Romeo and Juliet story. Her role in West Side Story is still one of the most adored in musical movie history, even though she didn't sing herself. Natalie played the ambitious and difficult burlesque performer Gypsy Rose Lee in the 1962 movie Gypsy, which was another part that stood out. Natalie did a great job of finding the right mix between being vulnerable and brave for the part. She was one of the few actors of her time who could easily switch between dramatic and comedic roles because she could get into the emotional lives of her characters. Natalie Wood was unique in more ways than just her good looks and fame. It was how emotionally open she was in her acts. She felt what she did, not just what she did. People liked her characters not because they were unrealistic, but because they were real, flawed, and fully human. Natalie made every role feel real, whether she was a shy girl falling in love for the first time or a woman who was hit hard by life. Natalie was known for her poise, intelligence, and hard work when she wasn't playing. People who worked with her often said she was very professional, coming to work ready and showing respect for the job. She wasn't cocky, even though she had been a star since she was a kid. Film directors, co-stars, and fans all liked her because she seemed sincere. It was clear that she cared about her work. Along with her work in movies, Natalie also had a lot of memorable roles on TV, especially at a time when many movie stars avoided the small screen. She showed that she wasn't afraid to try new things with her writing or take creative chances. Natalie gave every part the same amount of dedication and intensity, whether it was in a TV movie, a limited series, or a movie version of the show. Natalie was one of the most famous and well-paid actors in Hollywood by the middle of the 1960s. She was up for 3 Oscars before she turned 25. This is a very amazing and rare accomplishment. But Natalie's deep understanding was what really made her stand out, not all the awards and praise. She wrote about things that made her reflect on life, and people of all ages connected with that. A lot of the time, her figures showed how American society was changing and getting tense at the time. Teenage rebellion, holding back emotions, and the need to find oneself and a place to join. People in Hollywood also saw her as a sign of change. Natalie changed as the studio system broke down and the industry moved toward sharing more personal and socially aware stories. She hung out with directors who were willing to break the rules and look into bigger ideas. She was from the company star Scarlett's golden age, but she wasn't afraid to deal with the complicated parts of being a woman today. Showing people who were looking for more than just love or fame. They were trying to figure out who they were, dealing with childhood stress, trauma, and the mental toll of Hollywood. In Natalie Wood's life, there was a lot of amazing ability, early success, and deep personal problems that were often hidden beneath the Hollywood shine. But there was a complicated story behind her early success. It was full of intense family pressures, emotional turmoil, and the darker realities that many young women in the entertainment business in the middle of the 20th century had to deal with. Maria, Natalie's mother, was very demanding and often mean, which was one of the biggest problems she had to deal with. Maria was determined that her daughter would succeed no matter what, and her drive sometimes showed up in hurtful ways. People who knew Natalie well say that she had a mother who expected perfection and had control over almost every part of her daughter's life and work. During filming, she even used disturbing techniques to get Natalie to feel things. Natalie's early successes were driven by her environment, but it also made her deal with anxiety and self-doubt for the rest of her life. Natalie tried to break away from the innocent parts that made her famous when she was a child star and then when she was an adult actress. Her famous role with James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause was a big turning point that showed how well she could play complicated, divided characters. Even though Natalie was successful at work, her personal life was often painful and open to others. Her sister Lana told people many years after Natalie's death that she had been sexually assaulted as a teenager by a famous Hollywood figure. Lana says that their mother set up a meeting between Natalie and this man in order to help her job, but the meeting ended badly and Natalie hid the trauma for years. Even though the alleged attacker's identity hasn't been proven, this news shows how young actresses were often in danger and exploited during Hollywood's golden age, which wasn't something that was talked about freely at the time. Natalie also had a hard time with the huge pressures of being famous. Friends and co-workers said she was a perfectionist who struggled with deep fears and being emotionally weak. She was known to get very nervous before performances, and the attention of the people was always on her. Being so open and honest gave her parts a lot of emotional depth, but it was hard on her health. Natalie looked for love and security in her personal relationships, but she often found instability and heartbreak. Her relationships with famous people like Elvis Presley and Warren Beatty were confusing and sometimes tumultuous, showing how hard it is to be happy in private when the media is always watching. Natalie also had a lot of mental problems in her close relationships, which may have been caused by things that happened to her in her childhood or the stress of her job. Natalie took a big break from playing around the middle of the 1960s, after some of her movies got mixed reviews. She went to therapy during this time, which was not common in Hollywood at the time and was seen as somewhat shameful. After years of stress and mental exhaustion, this break showed that she wanted to heal and take back control of her life. She also did risky things at work, like paying a lot of money to get out of her studio contract and firing her whole support staff, which showed she wanted to change her job on her own terms. Natalie was married to British director Richard Gregson during this time, and they had a daughter together named Natasha. The marriage ended after a few years, and Natalie continued to work toward her job goals while also being a mother. Natalie and Robert's complicated relationship, divorce, and second marriage in 1972. Natalie Wood's story is still a moving part of Hollywood history that shows how complicated things really are behind the scenes. But if you want to fully understand Natalie Wood's life, you can't leave out one of the most important relationships she had, her relationship with actor Robert Wagner. Many parts of her personal and professional life were greatly affected by their relationship, which changed a lot of her later life in tender and complicated ways. It's important to include Wagner as a key figure as we talk about Natalie's problems and debates. But for now, let's look at Natalie's problems in a bigger picture before getting into the details of their past. Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner met for the first time in the 1950s, when they were both young stars figuring out how to make it in Hollywood, which can be hard and unpredictable. When they met, they were both rising stars trying to make their own way in a field that was full of opportunities and tough competition. They became close because they had both been through the same thing and understood what it was like to deal with fame at such a young age. Natalie and Robert were both driven and ambitious, and they knew how hard it was to live in the public eye. The fact that they had something in common helped build a connection based on real love and shared goals. Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner fell in love pretty quickly, and in 1957, when Natalie was only 19, they got married. Their marriage was a big event in both of their lives. It gave them hope and the chance to build a future together. The first few years of their marriage were full of the energy and hope that come with young love, especially when the two people are united by shared goals and the unique experiences of being in Hollywood's elite. They looked like a perfect pair, combining success and love in a way that captivated both fans and the media. But soon enough, the realities of their lives showed them how hard it is to balance work goals with personal happiness. Natalie and Robert were both very dedicated to their jobs, which meant they had to work long hours, travel a lot, and deal with a lot of public attention that not many people could really understand. The demands of fame and the stress of keeping up a public image sometimes made things difficult between them, putting their marriage to the test. They had problems, but they were still emotionally connected to each other, and neither fame nor hardship could easily break that link. Natalie and Robert split up in 1962, after being married for 5 years. The breakup was hard for both of them because they were trying to find their own identities apart from their shared past. Natalie stayed determined in her efforts to become an actress. As Robert worked on his own career, they had a story that would continue even though they were no longer together romantically. In ways that went beyond what is normal for ex-spouses, their lives stayed connected. Natalie and Robert had a difficult but long-lasting relationship in the years after they got divorced. Because they had a lot in common and were close as kids, they built a strong bond that lasted through time and space. This ongoing relationship had times when the two people got along again and times when they grew closer. This shows how complicated love and friendship can be and how they often shape relationships that last. Both of them couldn't totally let go of what they had shared, which suggests that their relationship was more than just a romance. Because of this strong bond, they got married again in 1972, almost 10 years after they had first broken up. The fact that they chose to get back together shows how much they affected each other's lives. It showed a renewed dedication and a wish to build something lasting, even though their union had had problems in the past. For many, their second marriage was a sign of hope and a chance to start over with more wisdom and understanding. Natalie and Robert continued to find it hard to balance their personal relationship with their busy jobs during their second marriage. Both of them stayed in the show business and often had jobs that kept them away from home for long periods of time. Even so, they worked hard to make their family life and sense of security in the unpredictable world of Hollywood. The work they put into keeping their relationship strong showed how much they wanted to grow their bond and build a base for the future. An important part of Natalie's life with her husband was becoming a mother to their daughter Natasha. Having a child and the fame pressures added another level of complexity to their relationship, but it also brought them joy and a sense of stability. Having a family and working in the public eye at the same time wasn't easy, and Natalie and Robert had to learn how to change and grow as parents and partners. The unsolved riddle of how Natalie Wood died in 1981. Natalie Wood was tragically killed in 1981, and the reasons for her death are still very unknown and are the subject of a lot of discussion. Nicole drowned while on a boat trip near Santa Catalina Island, California. The exact events that led to her death have never been fully explained. People were shocked by this terrible event, and both fans and reporters are still looking for answers. There have been decades of rumors about what really happened that terrible night. It was the end of a beloved actress's life and the start of one of Hollywood's longest and most mysterious secrets, which continues to interest and bother people who want to know what happened and why. At first, Natalie's death was thought to have been caused by drowning. From what was officially said, it looked like she had fallen overboard and died too soon. At first, it looked like a terrible accident happened because of rough seas, poor visibility, or someone slipping on the boat deck. However, as time went on and the case got more attention, questions started to arise about the specifics. After the autopsy report was looked at and reviewed again, it showed some worrying errors. Notably, bruises were found on her body that didn't seem to fit with a simple fall or drowning by accident. Along with other injuries, these marks made people think that the accident might not have been as simple as it seemed at first. Witnesses on the boat gave different stories, which added to the uncertainty and made the initial decision less clear. The results of this investigation make it more likely that foul play may have been involved in her death, but there was never solid proof of this. People have been interested in the case for decades because of the mystery surrounding it. It is one of Hollywood's most haunting unsolved tragedies. There are no easy answers to this story because it has so many levels of complexity. Investigators and the public have had a hard time putting together a clear story because of the conflicting evidence, the fact that key players have stayed silent, and the passage of time. The fact that there is still some doubt about Natalie Wood's death has led to a mythos, in which speculation fills in the holes left by facts. Over the years, many books, documentaries, and articles have tried to figure out what happened. Their theories run from the death being an accident to something much worse. Natalie Wood's bond with her husband Robert Wagner at the time of her death made the story more difficult to follow. Even though they were married for a long time and were often very close, there were problems and stories that spread widely about them. People in Hollywood knew about how intense the relationship was because there were stories of emotional fights, breakups, and reunions. There were rumors of cheating on both sides, and some people think that these personal problems may have made things more tense on the boat. It's hard to know how much these things changed what happened that night, but they do make an already complicated story even more so. Their relationship wasn't just a background. It was a key factor that affected how people thought about what might have happened, with some thinking that marriage problems played a part in the tragedy. The part of alcohol was another important issue that came up in conversations about Natalie's death. Reports from that night say that alcohol was consumed, which some think may have affected judgment or caused careless behavior, which raised the risk of an accident. A lot of people have noticed that there is alcohol on the boat. Even though it's not a confirmed cause of death, many investigators and critics think it played a part. Natalie's alcohol use may have made it harder for her to keep her balance or make smart decisions, which could have led to her falling. Also, the alcohol may have made any problems between people on board even worse. Even so, there are still questions about how the events really happened and if there were other factors at play. Robert Wagner and actor Christopher Walken were two important people who were on the boat at the time. Although both guys said what they thought happened that night, their stories did not always match up with each other. Witnesses' different stories have only added to the controversy and kept the case under close watch. Investigators and the public have been going over their statements for decades, looking for mistakes or hints. Wagner and Wallen's comments don't match up, which makes it hard to come up with a clear and agreed-upon timeline and keeps the air of uncertainty alive. This lack of consistency has led to suspicion and guesswork. Some people are thinking if important details were left out on purpose or people just forgot them. The fact that such well-known people were on the boat that night only made the media and public more interested, as many people tried to figure out what was going on. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department did something very unusual. They reopened the case more than once. The most recent times were in 2011 and 2018. These reopenings show that both law enforcement and the public still have questions, and they show a desire to find new proof or make clear information that already exists. Each new review sparks new questions and interest, but the main riddle surrounding Natalie's death have still not been solved. Modern forensic methods and new interviews with witnesses were used in the new investigations, which shows that people are still determined to find the truth even though time has passed. Law enforcement is still looking into the case and won't give up on the idea that there is more to find out. This shows how unsettled and controversial it is. Over the years, many ideas have been put forward. One is that Natalie may have been involved in a domestic dispute on the yacht before she disappeared. Though no one was ever officially charged, some witnesses and sources have said that there may have been an argument or even a physical altercation. This idea is still one of the most debated parts of the case, and it adds a dramatic, if unproven, element to the tragedy. As well as the bruises found on Natalie's body, stories of tension and unease on the yacht that night add to the idea of a fight. However, this is still just a guess since there is no solid proof or reliable testimony. The story serves as a lesson of how rumors and suspicion can cloud tragic events when there aren't enough clear facts. Lana Wood, Natalie Wood's sister, says she asked Natalie to leave Robert Wagner. People have been interested in Natalie Wood's sad and strange death for a long time. A deep, touching family story that not many people have heard in full is hidden beneath the surface of this Hollywood mystery. Lana Wood, Natalie's younger sister, made an amazing and emotional statement in a rare and honest interview. She is 79 years old. Lana said that before Natalie's untimely death, she had asked her many times to leave her husband, actor Robert Wagner. Natalie's death happened so many years ago that this admission gives us a rare and personal look into the private problems she faced behind closed doors. A lot of fans, biographers, and other observers never fully understood or respected his struggles. Lana Wood told her straight out, "I told her you don't want to be with him anymore. You need to leave. I begged her. I begged." These simple words can make you feel a lot because they show how worried and scared Lana was about her sister's health. Lana's point of view is very important because she knew Natalie better than anyone else. This movie shines a light on a very difficult relationship that was a lot more complicated than what the media or most people thought. People have known about Natalie and Robert's ups and downs in their relationship for years. A lot of people said that their marriage was passionate but tumultuous, with reports of cheating and tension. This direct comment from Lana, on the other hand, makes the story much more human and relatable. It seems to show that these problems weren't just dramatic rumors, but real problems that affected the people who loved Natalie the most. It's a reminder that Natalie was really going through a lot of emotional pain, even though she looked beautiful and made Hollywood news. Lana's statement makes it possible to think more deeply about Natalie's personal life in the years before she died. If Natalie's sister had to step in and beg her to leave Wagner, it means that the problems in the marriage were serious and were still going on. There may have been forces at play that the press and the rest of the world never got a full picture of. It adds to the complexity of Natalie's last years by pointing to a woman stuck in a tough and possibly unhealthy relationship while still keeping up her public image and job. Most importantly, Lana's statement doesn't answer all the questions about Natalie Wood's death. Instead, it adds more emotional depth to the story. It makes Natalie more real and shows her not just as a famous actress or a sad figure, but also as a sister, a wife, and a woman who faces problems and fears that many people, even famous people, face. If we read Lana's words, they make us think about Natalie's life with more kindness and understanding. Like someone who might have wanted happiness and safety but had a hard time getting them. The news also shows how hard success and complicated relationships can be on a person. Some people think that Natalie may have felt stuck or unsure about her future because of the stresses of being famous and being married. Lana's plea makes the family's worries stick out even more as they are very important and urgent. It also serves as a warning that Hollywood's shiny exterior often hides deep personal pain. This statement brings up important questions about how Natalie and Robert Wagner interacted in the years before she died. That Natalie's sister wanted her to leave, what does that say about how well they get along? What worries and fears did Natalie have that no one else knew about? And what role might these personal problems have played in what happened that terrible night when Natalie's life was cut short? Because Lana Wood is honest, we get a rare look into the family's point of view, which hasn't been talked about much in public. Family members often know things and feel things that aren't talked about in the news or in government reports. Still, these private voices are very important for getting the whole story. Lana's honest confession tells us that Natalie's family loved her and cared deeply about her safety, even when there was celebrity news, open investigations, and media speculation. In addition, Lana's words show how difficult family loyalty can be. Even though she talked about these worries in public many years after Natalie's death, it shows how hard it was for her to support her sister while also accepting her choices. Families with troubled relationships often face these kinds of problems, especially when the people involved are getting a lot of attention from the public. Lana's honesty about pleading with Natalie adds a level of emotional openness that not many fans or onlookers had seen before.